So to chew on all this some more, we bring in Charlie Hurt, Washington Times opinion editor and Fox News contributor, and Deroy Murdock, senior fellow at the London Center for Policy Research and also a Fox News contributor. Charlie, I'll begin with you. This guy is wrecking the Constitution. He won't accept a Supreme Court decision. And on top of that, he's always telling Donald Trump and his followers that they're terrible, evil, MAGA, whatever people, and wants to throw Trump in jail for 400 years. He won't abide by a single decision. Help me on this.
So, yeah, once again, you've proven you don't need help. That little monologue there can't be topped. But it is. But you're exactly right about it. And of course, the courts. When you go back and you look at sort of the history of court decisions dealing with affirmative action, they've been pretty consistent over the decades. That affirmative action using race to determine whether or not colleges or anybody can be hired or admitted into school is against the Constitution. It's pretty clear. And so what we've had is we've had decades of Democrats trying to make an end run around that, trying to get judicial activism to employ what they are not able to do legislatively. And so then they're reminded yet again that, yep, being racist is still illegal when it comes to hiring or admitting people to college. And this is the result you get with Joe Biden. He's crying about it. He's whining about it. And as you point out, he's undermining the Constitution.
He absolutely is. It's the foundation of our democracy. Deroy Murdock, here's a question for you. On the Supreme Court decision for racial preferences and affirmative action and so forth, might this have an impact across the country for diversity, equity, inclusion, all this DEI stuff, which the Bidens worship and have written into appropriations and regulations, everywhere. God knows not. I mean, it could affect corporate boards, could affect employees, I don't know, it could affect everything. Is this the end of DEI?
Well, I think it sort of slows it down. Now, this decision deals with universities, and it doesn't necessarily say across the board everywhere, but it certainly is a marker in the soil, in the sand, that says, we got to stop getting away from this idea of judging people by their skin color. At some point, it's been almost 60 years since the Civil Rights Act and so forth, and I think next year will be 60 years since. After 60 years, can we say, okay, let's judge people on their merits? I think this is a plus in the standpoint that this is it creates even greater urgency for school choice, for us to get the kind of situation where minority kids can learn enough so they can apply for school, apply for jobs, and be able to compete with white kids or other kids who might be more, have greater resources, what have you. And having the situation where we spend all this money and kids get out of school and don't really know anything, no fault of their own, that has to stop. And the idea that, well, they can get in on their skin color. If that's not the capacity, if that's not the route in, and it's got to be their intellect, then we got to work on building their intellects, which is to get the schools under control and performing, which largely they're not at the moment.
Charlie, once upon a time, Senator Joe Biden, I think, believed a lot of what Deroy Murdock just said. Once upon a time. Once upon a time, it was President John F. Kennedy who put in affirmative action because he was against racism. He was against Jim Crow. He was against what the Southern Democrats were doing, okay? This has become so perverted now that racial preferences, which are a form of racism themselves, are back. Biden has completely flip-flopped in his own career. And it's so troubling to me to see him attack the Supreme Court. That's the other part of this equation.
But isn't that kind of what you get when you have somebody who's entirely driven by political efforts, completely driven by whatever is politically expedient? I don't think that Joe Biden cares about people getting educated and a vibrant, healthy, diverse workplace. Or if he did, then he would embrace things like school choice and the things that actually improve people's lives. And it's kind of interesting listening to some of the speeches from RFK Jr. lately. When he talks about programs for the poor and trying the war on poverty, and we can debate about whether that stuff is successful or not. But that generation of Democrats really cared about poor people and wanted to help poor people, whether they're minority or white or whatever, improve themselves. And it's sort of, we've kind of graduated from that. And now what Democrats care about is using poor people or minorities as political pawns in order to keep their own power. And so the success and the thriving of poor people or minorities or whatever has gone out the window. They don't care about that. They just want to stay in power.
By the way,
that's right.
Bobby Kennedy Jr.'s father was completely, of course, he was completely against the Southern racism. He agreed with his brother, John F. Kennedy. But also campaign. I just want to emphasize this. Well, I don't know what Robert Kennedy Jr. is going to do or not do. Bobby Kennedy, running for president, was in favor of keeping his brother's tax cuts and was against the welfare state.
There you go.
He ran against LBJ's welfare state because he said it would create dependence
Which
on
it has
government,
done.
which is exactly what it's
sorry about that.
Now, Deroy, let me just switch gears a wee bit. On this other thing, the court says, no, you don't by yourself have executive power to cancel all these student loans. Biden gets up and says, not the last word. First of all, it is the last word, the Supreme Court. Italicized Supreme.
Supreme, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
You guys are both editors and columnists. You get that. Now, then he turns around and says, we're going to figure out a way out of it.
Yeah.
Okay? I mean, first of all, whatever income-based, I don't know what his plan is. I read it several times. It will be ruled unconstitutional again. He will lose again in the courts. Why does he keep doing this? He's making a mockery not only of the judicial process, but of his own self. People are scratching their head and say, stop, stop.
Look, the Supreme Court didn't even rule on the merits, whether it's a good or bad idea. It said, look, you got to get the
That's
Congress
right,
to pass
by the by.
And
That's
you're right.
exactly right.
It's the Supreme Court, not the intermediate court. Okay, or the temporary court,
the beginners,
the beginners court, exactly.
Right.
And look,
the Water Wings court.
Right, exactly.
This is the Supreme Court.
And here's a guy who spent all these years in the Senate, so he understands about trading horses and putting coalitions together. What if he said to the Congress, all right, here's the deal. I want this student loan bailout, and I'm willing to take the Trump tax cuts and make them permanent in return for the bailout. Okay, and then maybe you get a bipartisan coalition that signs this piece of legislation, and then you can have a beautiful signing ceremony on the White House lawn and sign it, and then it will be a legitimate law, whether you like it or not, and it won't have this stench of authoritarianism about it. And maybe that's something where the left and right can come together.
So
and do
let me
something
get this right. This is a very interesting moment in history, right here. On this set. You're saying you're offering Biden a legislative strategy.
I am.
We'll give you student loan cancellations if you give us permanent Trump tax cuts.
That's it. Yep. There's a bipartisan deal made in heaven. Or made at 1211 6th Avenue.
You know what? I could go to work on that. I could conceivably go to work on that. Charlie, speaking of going to work, a recent poll, I hope I get this right, the Echelon poll shows a friend of ours, Vivek Ramaswamy, moving up the ladder. He's now got 10%. And he's closing in on Governor DeSantis, who had 15 or 16%. Trump's got 49. Now, what do you make of that? Vivek Ramaswamy closing in on DeSantis is not what the odds makers thought 6 months ago.
Well, of course, my favorite thing about it is that it reminds us that the odds makers are all the experts in Washington who never know anything. They get everything wrong.
Got it.
Kind of like when Kamala Harris announced, and she was going to be the one to beat in 2020 in the Democratic or
That didn't turn out that way, did it?
I remember
Did not turn out that way. So I love it for that reason. And the other thing I like about it is that I think it underscores the degree to which Vivek Ramaswamy is talking about stuff in a way that few other Republicans are. And that guy, whatever happens this cycle, that guy is sticking around, and he is going to be a very important voice in Republican politics for a very long time. And we're going to be better off for it.
You know, that's interesting. Deroy, Vivek, he was just sitting right there last week. And were you at the...
I was.
Yeah, you were there. I had to stand up for 3 hours.
Yeah, you did a great job hosting that dinner.
We did. But here's my point to what Charlie's saying. He's talking about ideas. Ideas. It's an idea-based campaign.
Absolutely correct.
And I think that's one of the reasons the yield is rising.
Ideas and beautifully presented. He's almost frighteningly well-spoken. I mean, this guy speaks in gorgeously composed paragraphs. It's amazing. And he took Q&A at this dinner we attended, answered all the questions very, very clearly. Nothing threw him off guard. And then his whole, American dream story of having parents from India and all that, and being able to advance in this society. I think he's a multimillionaire, maybe not quite a billionaire. He's been very successful. I think he's 37. He's not even cracked 40. And, who knows what will happen in terms of the presidential nomination. But I don't think we've heard the last of Vivek
And he was
Ramaswamy.
a good tennis player.
Apparently a good tennis player, too.
Right.
A pretty amazing young man.
Charlie Hurt, Deroy Murdock, and the Supreme Court, not the intermediate court, not the Water Wings court, the Supreme Court. Thank you, gentlemen. We appreciate it. All right, coming up now.